Hello and welcome. This is Dre, and I'm coming back with a follow up from my last video. Decided to do it as a live just because. um, One of the things that I really want to kind of do, especially since it was requested in the comments, was one follow up on one critical point that I think got lost based on uh, some of the comments and some of what some folks um, text and emailed after the video. One, I'm not saying that patriarchy, definition one, is a tool of white supremacy. I'm saying that patriarchy is white supremacy. You see that there's multiple definitions for a thing, and especially given frankly, it's hard to make the case that, especially nowadays, that Black America is a patriarchy in any sense. So we're talking about a system. Matter of fact, you know what? Google is your friend. So, and it says patriarchy, and this is the second definition, and this is the one that a lot of scholars are referring to, basically that everyone is referring to when they say patriarchy in regards to socioeconomics. We're not talking about family formation. We're not talking about the home, which this definition definitely can have impacts on that. But patriarchy, a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. So that is the starting point. And that's where I'm going to kind of jump off and go a little bit deeper to fully define what it is I'm talking about, because there happens to be a lot of conflation, especially online, when it comes to that word. A lot of times that word gets thrown around and leveled at Black men, and it becomes one of those things that, like, if you don't know any better and you listen to those discourse, you would think that it is Black men who have created and architected this system, which is oppressing themselves and their women at the same time. And that is not the case. Patriarchy, i.e. white supremacy. Understand this, there is a in-group and an out-group or out-groups within that system. And because of that, people who are not a part of that in-group get targeted. And even in the in-group, there's varying degrees. So it's a very stratified system. To define it, simply put, at the nation's inception, it was, even though we as Black people were there from the start, there were Black people that contributed to the Revolutionary War. There were Black bodies that served government. There were Black bodies that even helped in the drafting of the Constitution and Declaration. However, it was a white male landowning class that seized the power, and they insulated themselves with said power for their benefit and the benefit of their progeny. And there's two aspects to patriarchy, i.e. white supremacy. Once again, not talking about who the fuck is in the family. We're talking about white supremacy. Everywhere you use patriarchy, you can use white supremacy. Everywhere you use white supremacy, you can use patriarchy. They are synonymous. And where it ties into Black bodies is simply this. And this is one that gets real deep, real quick, and it probably would take a really, really long time. But simply put, at its most concise, Black men, because they are part of the out group, are discriminated against in a plethora of ways. And because by nature of this system, Black men are not patriarchs. Black men do not have patriarchal standards, because what you're saying is Black men are upholding white supremacy, which there's a deep irony in that, because in effect, there is some truth in the idea of Black bodies upholding white supremacy, because there is a certain proportion of your population that does have to, how do I put it? There is an acquiescence and a buy-in that does have to occur in such a system. And it's not, and I don't want to frame it in like these people are shucking jiving, trying to get along with Master Colonel or anything like that. However, I guess a tacit acceptance of status quo is probably the better way to put it. And to varying degrees, anybody who's a part of the out group, I feel, has it. You have those who you're straight up burn every fucking thing down, who won't accept a single lick. And then you have those who like, hey, it is what it is. I want to try to make some things better so that my children, my family, somebody gets something, you know. But all of that being said, and this is in particular a response, partially a response to one of the comments from one of my friends. They asked something to the effect of, what I had done to, how was it phrased? Reader's fundamentals, right? Let's see. I said, what things have you done to shift away from patriarchal standards or educating on how not to embody things have you done and not to embody those ideologies? So for one, I'm a Black man. And sorry. For one, I'm a Black man. And patriarchy or white supremacists, choose whichever word you want, is antithetical to my very being in existence. Because Black men have truly been legislated and socioeconomically relegated to certain conditions throughout the history of America. I mean, Black men and women have always been under assault in this country. And as a result of that, when you talk masculinity, when you talk Black male expressions of masculinity, you're not talking the narrow expressions that get characterized by white guys in media. And that is one of my biggest gripes when reading certain feminist works, is a lot of times there's dynamics and particular things that are not wholly representative of And granted, I know everybody has their own particular experience, but they're not wholly representative of what I feel Black men and Black women's dynamic really is. A lot of times it feels like it's a Black woman writing about a white guy. And she just happened to snatch the nearest Black guy to be the stand-in. It's like, you're a man, he's a man, y'all all do the same things. And it's, I mean, in terms of misogyny and things like that, for one, I put it like this. I don't allow anybody to belittle, discriminate, or put down anybody in my presence of a particular group, whether they be of a particular persuasion or not. That's not to say I don't cut up, I don't have fun or anything like that. I'm not the PC police. Probably can tell because I cuss like every 5 minutes in every video. But that being said, that's not really where my energy and focus is so much per se, as my main goal is truly fighting institutional misandry against Black men and Black people in general. Moreover, because there's a lot of policies and practices from a corporate standpoint that is frankly maddening. I've worked for several corporations that are pretty large, and I've worked for 4 companies that's within the Fortune 500. One that I know for sure was a Fortune 100 company, and there's another that might have been, but I'm not sure because that was almost 10 years ago now at this point. All that being said, it's a lot of commonalities between that and even with speaking with colleagues and peers from other companies. Going into a DEI and B meeting, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging meeting, it's very frustrating as a Black man. And it's one of those things where a lot of times the wording is such that is promotive of inclusivity. We want everybody to have a seat at the table, but when you look around at the very table, it's like often I'm one of one or one of few that are in the room, and there's always the same admission being made, which is, we have opportunities to recruit more Black and Latino men, excuse me, promote more Black and Latino men in our organization. And I've heard that time after time after time after time after time after time after time. And frankly, it's maddening to me. And there's certain realities where I know, like if you're talking about places of employment, jobs that require certain qualifications, like say for instance, a particular degree, higher ed and whatnot, there are fewer of us because of, once again, those very same barriers that patriarchy has placed in our way, that has made certain things less accessible to us and more accessible to our women. This is one of the ways in which that very same system, I will not say privilege, because I feel that's a very, very wrong and very condescending word in regards to marginalized people. And whenever people talk like minority privilege or anything like that, like it is, I'll slap the fuck out you if you say that shit in my face. I'll just put it like that. Yeah, privilege. Yeah, I got relatives that got lynched. But it's one of those things where, because there are programs in place to provide assistance to women, our female compatriots, are able to more readily access certain things and get a certain leg up, and in comparison to Black men, even in regards to a lot of organizations which are quote unquote Black organizations, a lot of them tend to skew heavily female in their makeup. So while they are technically open to both male and females, in a lot of cases, they skew very heavily towards the female gender. And I can't remember the exact name of the organization, but they recently is connected to I'm blanking. It's connected to Chadwick Boseman. It's the School for the Arts, and they do scholarships. And they gave about 5 scholarships, if I'm recalling correctly. And it was 4 scholarships going to young ladies, which congratulations to them. And it was 1 going to a young brother, if I'm recalling correctly. And that's a divide. I mean, that is a straight up divide. And I know when it comes down to certain things, there could be a whole lot at play behind the scenes that could be shaping some of those things. Sometimes it's a lack of knowing where to recruit. Sometimes it's simply the recruiters not being able to connect and have the vocabulary to actually effectively bring these people into the organization and spark interest. So it is very complicated, and it's not as simple as simply writing it off wholesale, like, you know, Black women took Black men's jobs and whatnot. Honestly, this all goes back to the civil rights era, when this is where, once again, Dr. T's book kind of breaks it down a good bit. I'm working my way through it. It takes me a while to read through text. I think I might be like borderline dyslexic, because a lot of times I read things, and especially if it's something that I'm not particularly focused at the time, like I have wild different interpretations. Like I feel like the words literally change sometimes on the page. So when I read something, sometimes I read it 2 or 3 times um, to make sure I got the right understanding. Which, coupled with the internet, yeah. But yeah, that's where you had the original drafts of affirmative action made no mention of gender. But this is why, and this goes into the argument where a lot of people probably heard some of the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action has been white women. How? Well, because when affirmative action was drafted, it was not inclusive of gender. Therefore, Black men and women were given equal footing and standing. White women then came and lobbied and made basically, I guess you would say, amendments to drafts of the legislation to when the bill got passed, gender was included. That gender status being included gave white women minority status, and it also gave Black women double minority status under the legislation by virtue of being both Black and woman. So with that being said, a lot of this is policy driven. A lot of this is the product of empire politics, as I said before. Honestly, from a tactical and strategic standpoint, there's a sick genius to it all, to where, to intersectionalize it for a moment. Honestly, the Black man could be argued. The average Black guy doesn't really have a refuge, because everywhere either ascribes him power and position that he never truly had, or to a degree that he is unable to actually exercise. And that goes from media, that goes to family, that goes to law, even down to religion. And you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's very. This is a very very deep subject, but my biggest thing is fighting against those anti-black misandry and just anti-blackness in general. I don't. I'm not on the front lines of anti-misogyny, I guess you would say, because one, I don't really know where a lot of misogynists are. I do come across some stuff on the internet, and when it's in my spheres, I do try to redirect. I do try to, uh, you know, offer that alternative perspective in a way that sparks discussions to open minds versus calling out and trying to inherently shame. Because there's a lot of people who, just to kind of put an empathetic stance on this, there's a lot of folks who, frankly, because of this patriarchal system, have been pushed out, who are having a really rough time, and they don't necessarily know why. And it's easy for demagogues to come along and scapegoat in such instances. So while, as I said before, white supremacy, i.e. the patriarchy, has targeted Black men and women differently, and as a result, it has produced different results in social standing, by and large, for the masses of Black men and women. All of that out the way. The other part that a couple, it was like two, three people commented on the video. Running theme was what I was doing to educate myself, some of the things I was reading to kind of make myself knowledgeable on some of the things I talk about and what I was talking about. I guess you could say that's the fun part of the video. So I already showed one. What I've been doing is a little bit of a personal reading journey for myself. There's been several works that I've been trying to get my hands on to get a full understanding of intersectional framework. Kind of where I started was with this one, The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. Not go front. I've read through about 8 chapters of this book. It's a rough read. It's a very rough read. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to see it through, but there are times where this is a very rough read. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying. A lot of times when I'm reading at certain points, I read certain things and I honestly, that is not the Black man that I know. I acknowledge that, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm in a bubble, maybe, but I don't know those guys. I don't know guys that behave in that manner. I have not been exposed to that. And even in some things, it sounds like there may be misunderstandings between the author and some of the men in their life. But there's some profound insights in it as well. And kind of going back to the patriarchal standards portion of it, Bell Hooks would have some rather interesting critiques on women in that. I believe it's in like chapter 3 of this. It's either like chapter 3 or chapter 4, but she makes talk about how it is ironically not so much men that she's found that so vehemently claim the patriarchy and aspire to it, but women that aspire to have the power of a patriarch and to dominate others. That was something that I found very interesting because, frankly, I've come across some individuals that gave those vibes, but to hear the mother of Black feminism kind of espouse some of those ideas and illuminate them was very interesting. It was like, I wasn't tripping. This was some bullshit. There's also a couple works that I have not had the chance to get, and I've put most of these in the description link. There is by her as well. I believe it's called "Is We Real Cool?" That's been one I've been trying to find. Have not been able to get it. I've tried back ordering it from a few like niche bookshops online, and generally like it'll say that they have it, and it'll be like, hey, it'll be a few weeks before we can get it out to you, and then I get a thing like, hey, orders canceled, we couldn't fill it. Another person, and kind of in this reading journey where I'm going with this was starting with Bell Hooks was because once again, she's regarded very highly as a feminist figure, especially for Black feminism. Her work itself isn't necessarily, especially what she's talking about in this book, isn't necessarily intersectional in terms of outlining the theory, but she talks about a lot of those particular issues that get brought up. The person who, I guess you could say, coined the term intersectionality and outlined it as a social theory would be Kimberlé Crenshaw with the accented E, similar to my name. And her work is called, the book I'm trying to get for her is On Intersectionality. I came across a paper of hers that she wrote recently, like literally recently, like 2-3 days ago. I've read through a good bit of it, but have not made it through. Don't want to cap and misrepresent. Like I have this massive store of stuff that I've read through, finished. I understand inside and out, and I am the master, so to speak. I just want to be as authentic in what I'm representing. I've read through probably about 25 pages of it, but I also kind of linked a short video of hers in the description itself, in which she talks about intersectionality and just kind of gives a quick hit of what it is. From there is the Dr. Tommy Curry, and the book of his that I'm going to be reading is going to be The Man Not. So at least from my understanding of it, I've read a few summaries, and I've listened to a lot of his, a good number of his lectures, and just clips of him in general speaking. How to put it? To kind of best sum it up, The Man Not kind of goes hand in hand with the book from Dr. T. They are providing the framework for a intersectional argument for the Black male experience. And kind of what was supposed to be the conclusion. I was trying. His book came out because I wanted this to kind of be the capstone for it, but instead it's kind of like the middle relief. But if you can see it, Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry, Flat Blackness, and Black Male Death by Dr. Hassan Johnson. And it, in the same vein as The Man Not, it is an intersectional argument for Black men. Another one that was kind of relevant to the initial discussion and kind of going into what I was talking about with in group and out group and how these things work. Um, I'm a little shy, but in chapter 2 of my book, Business 101, there is a chapter that's called Know the Keys, in which it talks about power and power dynamics. And it talks about knowing who you need in order to rule and govern. You can take that, you can apply that to business, you can apply that honestly to anywhere where there are power dynamics at play. There are keys to leadership. And what I mean by keys, I don't mean like principles, anything like that. I mean keys as in there are people who are stakeholders who are invested in your power, who have the ability to put you there and the ability to take you out. So part of that, and where it comes into to play with what I'm talking about with in group and out group, is honestly the key in terms of the macroeconomics of the American landscape. Most of the wealth in this country is white wealth, and there is a bit of residual wealth which some groups have been able to amass and accumulate. Basically, crumbs from the table, if you want to go with that analogy. That being said, in order to truly make immediate and meaningful impact, i.e., reparations, you have to go through the white patriarchs. Who are the patriarchs? The government. They are the Senate. They are the House, the judiciary, the presidency. Honestly, I think a good way to kind of illustrate this is this: like, we have been fooled into thinking that a black face in representation in these areas is so important. That's 90% of what we need. And I'm not saying that it's not important, but once you understand that there are keys that they have to keep happy, or essentially in this case, stakeholders that they have to keep happy, then you can really understand how it is that certain black politicians put forth measures that are really only on the margin slightly better than, white supremacists like boy Joe Biden. But I'll leave you with that. And it's available in case you were interested. It's available for sale on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Lulu, pretty much most places books are sold. And I've had in regards to the Black condition and history in this country, I'll be frank, a lot of that comes from my upbringing. My dad he is, like, he's a very wise, shrewd man. He is somebody who, when you talk about fighting white supremacy, like, yeah, X gonna give it to you. And he has stories upon stories upon stories that he has told me over the years. He honestly, going into his home, my dad is somebody I aspire to be like. Like, he has so many books about Black America and Black people, and there are things that he has, by extension, has been able to share with me and impart in me that you're not going to learn from our school system. It's foolish to expect a school system that is linked to the white supremacist structure to teach your kids who they are. Let that set in for a second. The very same people that stole you, pillaged you, did you the dirtiest, you're going to send your child to their school, not just to learn arithmetic, not just to learn language and things like that, but to sit in a history class where all of a sudden they're going to be told the truth about themselves and who they really are. Okay. In that sense, granted, I don't have some of the books that I personally have read that have really shaped my understanding of history, but I would say one of the ones I found to be a really quick and fun read was Dr. Rudolph Windsor's From Babylon to Timbuktu. I've read a few books by Ivan Van Sertima. Even one that I expect to be an amazing read is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I got this as a gift. I haven't been able to dive into it because I've been getting hit with so many projects and new books coming up that this is kind of like the jewel on my back catalog because it's so thick, as you can see. It's a big boy. I feel like I keep getting these newer books that are shorter. I'm like, okay, I can knock this out, that I can get to this. I can knock this out, that I can get to this. So, I guess in that regard, I'm like an active procrastinator. But yeah, there's tons and tons of books out there. One of the things that I would say is that when it comes down to what's going on around you, it's really going to be finding authors, even in some cases, finding reports that speak to those situations. If you want to know, like the deeper machinations of what you experience, facts, data, statistics. What they do is they help us contextualize the world around us, and they let us know how common it is that what our experience is. For instance, I'm a Black man who's divorced, and of people who marry, especially in our race, divorce is high all around. And it's one of those things that I still feel some type of way about it. Have a lot of feelings about divorcing, not the relationship itself, but just divorcing. I truly didn't want a divorce. I just wanted them to act right. But all of that being said, if, say for instance, and don't quote me on this, I'm not sure the exact statistics. I just know it's over 50. If divorce statistics was like in the Black community, only 5% of Black folks get divorced, it would really, really put into context, like, damn, what happened when it was so rare versus, hey, this is something that happens at that 50 plus clip. Beyond that, I got a lot of stuff that I actually read for fun, or have read for fun rather. And this is, I'm realizing that I'm looking at these things. My backlog has been ever growing because I get a lot of stuff and it keeps sliding in front of things. So one of my favorites has been The Alchemist. Nice little story. Very, very inspirational. It's about finding your own personal legend. It's a parable of sorts. It's by Paulo Coelho, and nice little read. Probably can knock it out in like 2 or 3 days. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I've got like some type of reading impairment, but I knocked it out in like 2 weeks while going to school for my master's degree. So, in terms of business, this is one which is another fun read as well. It's called Iceberg is Melting by John Kotter, and it is about change management. In business, the most trying thing is navigating change, large organizational change. And this outlines Kotter's method, which is the change management method. And really, there's a lot of insights to be gained from how to manage a large scale change effort. Honestly, it's one of those things that it's very helpful in that it provides a framework for these things. If you've never had to lead through such a change before, or never had to deal with a large scale change like that before, really helpful for me now because I'm at a company that has on paper completed a merger before I arrived, but in actuality, the merger is just now finishing because since I've been here at the beginning of the year, there's been, company A, company B kind of had their processes, they were kept separate. And now there's been a merging of roles, of processes, of systems, so that it feels like you work at one company now. So that's been something that's really helped me. Another one I've read for fun. I think everybody's probably gleaned something from this at some point in time. Like everybody does, like 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Fun book. A lot of advice that could be applied to business and life. And the thing I really like about this one is you don't really have to read it chronologically, so to speak. Like if there's a particular law that catches your attention, you can just flip to that law. All the chapters are pretty much self-contained. It's a very neat one. The one, and I'll probably share this too. My favorite laws are always say less than necessary, which is law number 4, and law number 5. This is anybody that knows me knows I'm a very prideful person. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Yeah. I'm really big into recently I picked up the 50th law as well, which is an expansion on that. It's on my backlog. Damn, I got a lot of work to do. I'm looking forward to reading that one. I picked that one up recently, probably about 3 weeks ago. I picked up it along with The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. So that is a book about, honestly, political jockeying. If you're into the 48 Laws of Power and the 50th Law, I would definitely highly recommend this one. Reading through this one right now. Once again, Dr. T's book kind of knocked out a lot of my reading. Well, bell hooks and Dr. T's book. And then another one that I found to be very interesting I'll be honest, I got this one because I remembered it from the Boondocks. It is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And you're probably like, what? So doing the episode Wingman, Huey Freeman, well, let me back up. Doing the episode of Wingman, where Granddad's vet friend dies. They go on, go out to see him off for his funeral. And Granddad basically is giving a eulogy. And he's starting up and it sounded pretty good. It's like, okay, we about to go somewhere. And then Granddad's like, Huey, say something deep. He's like, what? Deep. I'm good with this shit. And Huey quotes a few lines from one of the poems in this book. I believe it's called The Physician. But it has, I've just really gotten into it right before I got bell hooks. Nice little read. It starts off kind of reminding me a little bit, and honestly, it weirdly kind of reminds me of The Alchemist a little bit with the way it starts. I'm also big into religious texts, and I guess you could say apocryphal text at that. So this is my copy of the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees can be interpreted as a alternative to the Genesis. It's I've not read this in almost 20 years. I got this back when I was in high school. But it has certain details and things are different than the Genesis that you would encounter in the Bible or the Torah. Another one of them is the Book of Enoch. I got both of these at the same time, and I will admit, I only ever read the Ethiopic Book of Enoch. I didn't care to read the Hebrew or the Slavonic versions of Enoch. I always said that I'm going to go back one day and I'm going to read through those versions of the text. But it's a very interesting read, and it has a very interesting history. A lot of early Christians and Jews very much, I guess for lack of a better term, consider Enoch a canonical text. In it, essentially, a lot happens. The Nephilim essentially petition Enoch to speak to God on their behalf, and then when Enoch goes, God takes him up into heaven. Enoch sees things. God commands him to write. Yada yada yada. Very interesting read. I won't spoil the whole thing. If you're so compelled to get some of these alternative texts, they are not expensive at all. Maybe like $10-15 if that. And rounding out my religious text is the Holy Quran. I got a version of the text that I think is kind of fancy in my opinion. Like, it has commentary to help you understand what's going on, and scholarly interpretation, as well as, I'm not sure if this will pick up very well, but if you can see, the translated text is beside the Arabic text as well. One thing about the Islamic religion, I guess you would say the pristine version of the Quran is the Arabic Quran. They feel that a certain je ne sais quoi is lost when translating, and that the Quran in its truest form is in Arabic as it was transcribed after the Prophet's death. And then I have this one as well. It's my last book. It's a book of poetry and prose. I wrote it just to kind of have fun. The King's Verse by me, André, Heyward. Got a couple good ones in here, if I don't say so myself. I broke it down into a few different themes: love, life, politics, and faith. Some of the stuff that'll get your girl wet at the front. Some good stuff. There's some real good stuff in here. Some real good stuff in here. But yeah, that's some of the stuff that you know I have on my shelf at least, or that's on my radar. I'm kind of realizing now that I have all of these books out in front of me that I have a shitload of reading to do. But my biggest thing in regards to reading would be this. If you are somebody who aspires to climb in a corporate environment, reading is going to be key to that. Reading is going to be how you keep your edge. A lot of times, meetings with your direct manager or VPs is going to be very limited, and they often don't really have the time to coach in a way that, you know, a manager would coach a frontline employee. My first job in corporate, my manager, he was the site director. He would throw out books quite often. And I remember when it was one time he was like, "Yo, did you ever read such and such?" I was like, "Nah." It's like, "Why?" I was like, "I figured you would kind of just break down what it was about in our coaching." And he looks at me, "How many coaches have we had?" It's like, "One." "How long have I been here?" "Damn near a year." And he was like, "That was your coaching." And, you know, he broke it down. He kind of explained it to me. This is when I'm really young in my career. I'm like 22 maybe. But yeah, that it is something that can really give you a leg up. Don't go with things. How to put it? Let me rephrase it. Let me back up. Don't just go with things that interest you and are kind of like your niche. Definitely want to read to enjoy it. But the point is to challenge and to grow you and to make you aware of different things that's out there. Honestly, it's the reason why I have a book such as a Bell Hooks on my bookshelf. It's the reason why I want to find Dr. Kimberlé Crenshaw and others. I'm not too big to have my ideas challenged. It's through challenges to your ideas that you're able to sharpen them, able to refine them, and able to even, in some cases where you know you may be right, you still have to make the argument. It gives you a chance to get a sense of how to articulate certain things. A good example of what I'm talking about is this very book itself, and what I endeavored to do in the last video, which was make a at least surface level intersectional argument for Black men, because oftentimes we are ignored. Oftentimes, especially when you're talking about in context for of a lot of black guys' existence. Like the average guy, he feels like he's under assault from 360 degrees. Like he catching it from family, he catching it from job, he catching it from various societal institutions. And when you kind of put all that together, like if you talk to the average person, they may not be able to articulate things even to the degree that I have. And I don't feel like I really did that damn good of a job in articulating it at all. But it goes to helping to provide some type of language or framework for understanding. Because the black male experience for a lot of guys is one that is, I would argue, is kind of insulting. It's one in which you're viewed as solely as a resource, and I don't mean that in the way that like an appreciative organization would, or a civic organization would say, like, this person is a very valued member of our organization. Like, we love them, we cherish them. But I mean like a resource, like a cold, hard mineral, like something that you would pull out of the ground to try to transform. Something that you would slag, melt down, make into a tool. I've said in the past in certain instances that there's so many facets and dimensions to black men and black masculinity and society, and in particular, once again, patriarchal standards which women cling to and espouse really serve to constrict the expression of masculinity that black men have portrayed and expressed down to one of, honestly, a penis and a wallet. And what I'm getting at with that, and I'm not trying to be overtly triggering or anything like that. Where I'm getting at with that is simply this: like there is a coldness that a lot of black guys experience that they may not be able to articulate or maybe even discern why. And if they cannot perform traditional white patriarchal standards, that they're, honestly, y'all, it's not even a stretch to say demonized, vilified in a lot of regards. Like, it's why you have certain people who are on mainstream platforms speak as loudly as they do. It goes into the muzzling of black men. I mean, and this isn't just people on the internet that I'm talking about. This is folks on mainstream outlets like Malika Andrews, Ebony K. Williams. Can't think of the chick. Shoot, she's like a mediocre singer. Every time she perceives a slight from anybody black, like she talks about why bouncing on white dick at night or some shit like that. Like, what is her name? Is it Azalea Banks? Talks pro-black as fuck, but is very anti-black man. I mean, and that's the case for a lot of society. Even I can't remember the girl, but when Stacey Abrams was running for governor, even the last election, black men are seen as something to get in line, not as independent beings and individuals who have their own set of wants and needs, which has been bifurcated from the female populace by and large because of patriarchy. And not only that, but even in comparison to female peers, a lot of times there's this sense that, oh, black men and black boys are defective. But once again, being a female, females do get the benefit of the state. And the state is part of the trappings of patriarchy. One of the functions of patriarchy is to benefit the men that is in it, but also those those men, the women of that system, of that in group. It is not solely a freeze out in terms of, these women are dominated and their quality of life is no better than, the worst slaves. No. And in a lot of ways, it could be argued that patriarchies kind of exist for women, at least in large part, because a lot of it views women through a particular lens, a lens that women themselves, I really don't think they want to give up. It is how you have the concept of womanhood, and when you talk about various issues such as, abuse at the hands of women, one of the first replies is like, oh well, she's a woman, she can't hurt you. There's a lot of guys been killed by women, and especially in today's society, it's a little bit of a pretzel knot when you think about it, because she's both capable, just as capable as you, but somehow still less capable of you, and viewed through the patriarchal sense of womanhood, in which she is in need of protection and assistance from all the other big bad men out there, but yet she is been empowered and is capable, and she can do anything you could do, anything you could do, she can do better than you. So when you factor in and layer all those dynamics, it is one in which, shit, as Alonzo said in Dream Day, rabbit hole gets deep, Jake. God damn, rabbit hole gets deep. But thank you. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments, and let me know what you thought. Also, if you have any good reads, grow my backlog. Drop them down below. Thank you. Hope you have a great one.